Hey, what is going on guys? RvzStealth here, and in today's video, I'm going to be giving you guys my opinion on the best junglers for Season 5, patch 5.11. So first up on my list, I have Nidalee. Nidalee is definitely more of a high risk, high reward jungler, but if you do know how to play Nidalee correctly, you can carry games really hard on her. It's just, if you haven't played her very much, she's not like a Rek'Sai or an Amumu where you don't really need much practice on them. You can just head right into ranked and do fairly well, whereas Nidalee, she's really skill shot reliant with her Q, and if you cannot land her Q, then her ganks are really lackluster and they're really hard to pull off if you can't land her Q. However, if you can land your Q consistently on Nidalee, then she's a very rewarding champion. So some pros to Nidalee are she's got insane poke with her Q. She's got great burst damage as well. If you can land a max range spear when playing as Nidalee and then jump in Cougar form, if you've got a few AP items, then the chance of you bursting down that squishy target is going to be very high. She's also got a very strong early game. She's a great duelist as well, and her traps are really nice for the jungle because it gives the root effect on the monster, so it just allows her to take a lot less damage in the jungle. It also grants vision as well, so you can plant that around the enemy's jungle, and whenever the enemy jungler moves over your traps, then you're gonna gain vision on them. She's also got really good mobility due to her passive and her W. Her heal is also very strong. Once you get a few AP items on Nidalee and you have a tier, you're just going to be able to spam that out a lot in team fights, and it's just going to heal for so much. It also grants an attack speed bonus, so putting this on your AD carry when you're pushing down towers is definitely what you want to do. Some cons to Nidalee are she does have a very weak first clear, so I would definitely recommend to convince whoever's leashing you to give you a really good leash, because Nidalee's first clear is just really bad. And she is also very skill shot reliant due to her Q, and she does not have any crowd control either, so that makes her Q, or you definitely need to land your Q when going for a gank, or else you're really not going to be able to pick up a kill. So next up on my list, I have Amumu. Amumu is a really good tank jungler. He's got a load of CC with his Q and his ultimate, and he's got a very strong level 6 as well. Whenever I hit level 6 as Amumu, I try to look for a gank down bot because his ultimate is just so strong, and if you can get that off on both of the targets and your bot lane follows up, then the chance of you killing them both is very high. He's also got multiple build paths, so if your team is ahead, then building some AP on Amumu is not a bad idea, but if you're going even or you're behind, then building full tank Amumu is also good as well. He's got great clears in the jungle too due to his AoE damage from his W and his E, and he does percentage health damage as well, which is pretty good in this tank meta. He's also got really good engage with his Q, and if you pick up the Righteous Glory on Amumu, his engage is just really good. A few cons to Amumu are he can get kited pretty easily in teamfights if his Q is on cooldown, and he is weaker in the early game. Next up on my list, I have Rek'Sai. So Rek'Sai is one of the strongest early game junglers, so you definitely want to make sure that you're making a presence in the early game when playing as Rek'Sai. You can just snowball your lanes really hard, and she can gank from a lot of places where other junglers can't due to her tunnels. So some pros to Rek'Sai are she's very strong in the early game, like I said. She's also a very good duelist, and she counters invisible champions due to her burrow. She's got great mobility as well with her tunnels, and she's also got very good clear speeds with her Q. A few cons to Rek'Sai are she is pretty weak if you do fall behind with her, so like I said, make sure you're ganking in the early game a lot because her ganks are really good in the early game, and you can just snowball your lanes if you can get some good ganks off. She is also kited quite easily if her E is not off cooldown. Next up on my list, I have Gragas. Gragas is my personal favorite jungler right now because he's really tanky, but he still does quite a bit of damage with his W. He's got a very strong early game as well because he's got 2 CC abilities at level 3, and then the damage coming out of his W just makes his ganks really strong. He's got pretty good clear speeds as well because of the AoE damage from his Q and his E. He's also got very strong ganks, like I said, and he's a very strong level 6 jungler because once you do get your ultimate on Gragas, his ganks just become pretty much, like once you gank at level 6 with Gragas, you're basically guaranteed to pick up a kill wherever you gank as long as you can land your ultimate in the correct position. He's got mobility with his E, which is really nice as well, and his ultimate is game changing. Like, if you can land that in a team fight and just isolate an enemy squishy target from their team, then you're just gonna be able to burst them down really quickly. He's also got sustain in the jungle with his passive, which makes him a really good pick. One con to Gragas is his ultimate can be hard to land, so if you haven't tried Gragas in normal games yet, I would definitely recommend doing that before heading into ranked, because when I started playing Gragas, I found that I could barely land his ultimate, and his ultimate is a game-changing ability, so if you can't land it, then you are missing out on a lot of his kit. So play Gragas in some normal games, get used to him, and then head into ranked. So number 1 on my list for patch 5.11 is Sejuani. Sejuani is just an all-around really strong jungler. Even after the nerfs she's got, I still think that she is the best jungler in the game, because she's got really strong CC with her ultimate, with her Q and her E, and she's just got a really strong level 6. If she can get a gank down bot and land her ultimate on both of the enemy bot laners, then picking up a kill is going to be, like, the chance of you picking up a kill is going to be very high. She's also got very good damage for a tank. I always like to build Liandry's Torment when playing as Sejuani, and then the damage that you get from just that one AP item is just really, really good. She's got good mobility with her Q as well, and she does percentage health damage, which makes her a great pick in this meta. Her AoE clears are also really nice, and it just allows her to clear the jungle really quickly and then look for ganks whenever she wants. A few cons to Sejuani is that she does have a weaker first clear, and she has been nerfed quite a bit lately, but I do definitely think that she did deserve those nerfs, and even after the nerfs, I still think she's just a really good pick. So first up on the honorable mentions, I have Volibear. Volibear is one of the strongest tanks in the game. His passive is just really strong, and once you get to the late game as Volibear, he's basically unkillable. If the enemies aren't running Ignite and you have your passive up, it's just going to be really, really hard to kill Volibear. So if you're looking for a strong tank jungler, then Volibear is definitely a pretty solid pick. Next up I have Vi. So Vi is definitely one of the strongest early game junglers in the game because of her Q. She's also got very strong clear speeds in the jungle, and she does percentage health damage as well with her W. Her level 6 ganks are also very strong with her ultimate, so if you're looking for an all-around strong jungler, then Vi is definitely a pretty good pick. Next up I have Wukong. So Wukong's ganks in the early game, they aren't the strongest because he lacks CC, but once you do hit level 6 as Wukong, his ganks are really strong with his ultimate, and once you pick up the Black Cleaver on Wukong, then he gains a really big power spike. So Wukong's a very good team fighting jungler. He has very strong level 6 ganks, so if you're looking for a strong team fighter, then Wukong is a good pick. Next up I have Evelynn. Evelynn is one of the strongest early game junglers, and honestly she's got one of the best passives in the game for a jungler because it just allows her to bypass wards, which makes her ganks in the early game really strong. And if the enemies don't respect you when you're playing as Evelynn, you can just easily gank lanes, and if they aren't buying pink wards, then you can just walk up behind them and just kill them in the early game if they are pushed out of lane. So I do think that Evelynn is a pretty good pick. If you don't have a strong early game as her though, then she is pretty weak if you do fall behind with her, so make sure that you are making a presence in the early game. Next up I have Shaco, or Shaco, however you want to pronounce it. Shaco is one of the strongest early game junglers as well, so make sure you're ganking in the early game as him, because if you fall behind with him, he is very weak because he's very squishy and he doesn't really have any strong CC either. Next up I have Zac. Zac is definitely one of the most unique junglers in the game because he can pull off ganks with his E from places where a lot of other junglers can't. For example, if you go down bot lane and you're playing on blue side, if you sit in the tri-bush there and you just move a little bit up into lane, you can just gank over the wall, and the enemy bot lane's not going to expect it most of the time, especially if they don't have a ward in the tri-bush. So I think Zac is definitely a pretty good pick. He's really tanky as well, so if you're looking for a strong tank with pretty good CC, then Zac is a pretty good pick. So to round out the honorable mentions, I have Hecarim. Even after the nerfs this patch to Hecarim, I still think he's a very good pick. He's got good clear speeds in the jungle, his ganks are also pretty solid, and he's a very strong team fighter as well. So that is all for the video, guys. If you enjoyed, then don't forget to drop a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you all have a great day, and I will see you in my next video.